Welcome back, everybody, to the Lounge Fireside Chat. I'm Luca Marzorati. This is Adriana Jones. I'm very excited for the conversation we're having today. Today's conversation is a special one. Explore technology, cybersecurity, privacy, and more importantly, child safety. But at its core, this is a human conversation as usual. As you know me, is about, and this one is about like protecting children in a digital world that is evolving faster than our ability to really fully understand the risk. So first of all, I want to put it out there. Some of the topics that we will touch today include the child safety, online grooming, and digital exploitation. So these are very important, but also very sensitive subjects. So if anything in this conversation feels difficult or triggering, please take care of yourself. And in Australia, there is always support available through Lifeline on 13 11 14. So 13, 11, 14, and is available 24/7. So after a bit of housekeeping, the lounge, of course, this is, I know I've been quiet for a while, but again, I'm very excited for having Adriana today. All the records will be on our YouTube channel, on our page, on North Star Partner page, and this live is available for everybody in the lounge. So very keen to be joined by Adriana Jones, an engineer, a cybersecurity advocate, and Australian Woman in Security Award winner. So most importantly, though, let's go on the human side of things. What makes Adriana's story particularly powerful is the purpose behind her work. She's a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and Adriana had done something amazing and turned her own experience into action, founding first the Innocent Soul Project that turned into something a bit bigger and hopefully even bigger. That is the Innocent Soul Foundation with, of course, the mission to protect children, both online and offline. But I talk too much. Adriana, please make an intro. You do more justice to yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, I'm so honored to be here. As you mentioned, obviously, my name is Adriana Jones. I was born and raised in Guatemala, which is a small country in Central America. And I studied civil engineering back home with a major in structural analysis and topography. Came to Australia, and as you probably will hear from me, my background is slightly colorful. I studied 3 years of ministry and leadership. Out of those 3 years, I was designing buildings for a church around Australia, across Melbourne, Queensland, and New South Wales. And when COVID happened, I actually was forced to stop all the things that I was doing at the time and reinvent myself. And I came across a few scholarships in 2024 provided by the Institute of Applied Technology, which is TAFE. And those scholarships were my foot on the door in cybersecurity. It was like love at first sight. I loved security in general and technology. And more broadly, I decided then to start my master's in cybersecurity at Trump University in 2025.
Amazing. What a story as well. Guatemala, I'm a big fan,
I know
so
you've
you
been
know
there.
it. It's a
I know
beautiful
you've been
country.
there.
For who doesn't know it, it's like highly suggested. It's an amazing country with everything. These guys literally have everything, naturally speaking. Great culture and beautiful people, of course. So thanks for the intro, Adriana. Let's dig
My
into it,
pleasure.
shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So before the Innocent Soul Foundation, cyber and technology and everything, who's Adriana Jones? And what happened in your life that made, of course, protecting children your mission?
Really good question. Look, I was born in obviously, as I said, in Guatemala. My mom was a single mom at the time. I would suggest that I was born in poverty, which I was never aware of till I actually came to Australia. I was like, oh, okay, I think that was considered poverty. But my mom was a very resilient woman. She became a general practitioner, and obviously that changed her life. I didn't grow up with my dad, but my dad was a electrician for over 30 years and a politician back home. And obviously, having a single mom, I think single moms have a very big challenge because especially if they're trying to raise a child and get them to live a better life. They have to allow those children to be in the care of someone else at times. And I think that was the challenge that my mom had. So when I was very young, I think I was around 4 years old. I was, well, as you mentioned, I'm a survivor. I was abused as a very young child. And unfortunately, I guess the culture, not only in Central America and South America, but all around the world, I feel like this is a topic that not many people like to expose about, but it's absolutely very common. And I'm going to go through a couple of numbers in terms of how or what's really happening in Australia. And um, my mom, as I said, she was very resilient. She actually worked really hard all the time, and she's by far one of the best examples I ever had. And my mom supported me to just keep going in life, and she would always said to me, "Whatever you start, you finish it with excellence." And so, I went to university. I kind of started to forget about the past at the time, and then in 2022, I think this is probably the the point where things will probably change in my entire life. I lost my only sister in a car accident. And that told me that, if you're going to live your life, you really don't know when it's going to,
Yeah.
come to an end. But whatever you do, you actually have to live with purpose. You need to dedicate your time as much as you can. You have the skills, you have capacity, you have knowledge, you have whatever that looks like. It's being given to you as a gift, and I think it's better to explore the opportunity to live in purpose. And so that changed my perspective of everything. So beginning of 2025, when I was starting my master's in cybersecurity, I returned to Guatemala in the pursuit of justice.
Mm-hmm.
So I started all the process of pursuing justice. But in that process, there is a process that I'm going to come back to this in a moment, and why it's important to mention it is the re-victimization process. You have to explain what happened to you, right? I never thought it would be, a difficult process, but in fact it was. And I went through all of it, assuming that I will get some sort of justice. So when I arrived in Australia, it was not long after that, probably a week or two, and I got a call from my lawyer back home in Guatemala. Home is Australia now, but in Guatemala, and he said, "Look, I actually need to have a meeting with you." And he said, I'm so sorry, but we believe that your case is gonna fall apart." And the reason was because the last incident. So this happened for years, right? Lucas, so this is not just a one-off, and so this happens for years. But retrospectively, the laws cannot be applied, and so the last incident happened before laws were very well put in place in terms of child sexual abuse. Now, so that's really when things are shifting in my mind. So I arrived in Australia, and I was doing a subject in at uni called "In the Mind of a Hacker," and it was as good as it sounds. It was taking or actually studying in perspective how the mind of a hacker works from psychology, criminology, and their tactics technically. And so when I was doing that, I mean, I came across a lot of things, and they were very interesting. But by the end of my project, or the subject, sorry, I had a project where I had to choose a company. Um, I'll act as a hacker. I'll have to think like a hacker, and simultaneously, I'll have to try to find solutions for it. Now, I'll bring my background of engineering for a second, so that you can understand why I kind of butcher a little bit how cybersecurity works. But when I was studying civil engineering, I was doing, as I said, a major in structural analysis. And probably many of you have heard the news that, in South America, there are a lot of earthquakes. Now, Guatemala happens to have 37 volcanoes,
Yeah.
and it's on top of two tectonic plates. So when we design anything, we had to have two components to it in terms of how we analyze the structural elements. and that is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And that is obviously how the element behaves in terms of receiving any external forces, but is the element itself. And resistance, how everything will actually behave as a group of elements when there are external forces. So when I was analyzing what was happening in Australia in terms of cybersecurity, I mentioned to you prior, but I chose a daycare, a childcare,
Mm-hmm.
and there were different elements that made me very concerned. From the perspective of cybersecurity, I noticed that vast majority of small businesses that have contact with children, as I have mentioned, there are small businesses, and sometimes cybersecurity is not even a conversation in the table. And in terms of resilience internally, they're not protocols or the way that they actually collect information is not even something that they think about, like how they're collecting it, retaining the information and sharing that information with others. And I guess that was eye opening. I came across a case of a child care manager who was charged with child care, so with child sexual abuse material, and some of the material that was found in the child care's laptop and included all the photos that they've been taking of children for quite some time. And that was eye opening for me.
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary. And I believe like that's given, it's funny how cybersecurity you can relate to many different other areas, and like civil engineering is for once, right? But I believe that's the eye-opening moment for you is like, I need to do something about it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
is right.
That is crazy. That is crazy. And then what happened then? Of course, like having something that deeply personal and then like decide to make it so public and create a project, then became a foundation.
Yeah.
What was the challenge on that? Like, what made you do it? Like, I need to do it.
Yeah, I think it was when I was researching about the incidents in Australia, and I
Hmm.
wanted to make a case where, you know, I'm gonna differentiate something here because I think it's
Yep.
important. Child sexual abuse material is a criminal offense, right? So it's not a data breach. Even though
Hmm.
at the end of this meeting, I hope I can make my case where data is actually involved and might be a data breach, right? But as I was researching and reading as many cases as I could, I realized that Australia is is facing a not a challenge but a crisis of
Mm.
child sexual abuse. Um, at the moment, based on what I think, I don't know if you have heard of Braveheart, but they are not non for profit. You can check this out. They believe that 27% of Australians have been abused as a child before the age of 16.
Wow,
27.
that's a massive number.
Exactly. But that was 2025. That number has increased, and it's believed now that 1 in 3 Australians have been abused as a child. The number is far too high. Now, the University in New South Wales did a research a few years ago, and they found that 1 in 10 men are attracted to children. That number, I believe, is going up to 2. So it is a crisis. It's not a challenge anymore. It's a crisis, not a problem. I think it's a crisis because the problem is extending far to all places. Like even youth crime. 50% of youth have been abused
Mm.
as a child. So yeah, I think that was the moment. I was like, okay, if as much as I feel it's really really horrible to say it, it feels like I'm not alone, and that is a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be completely honest. It's not something that is comfortable to say, But ultimately, I think it's not about being comfortable. It's about doing the right thing so that we can bring as much attention to this. And there is a lot of elements of technology involved on it right now,
Yeah.
you know. So I had a conversation with somebody in the US, and they did this correlation. As soon as the internet it was created, these numbers were increasing worldwide. But Australia is in a very precarious position.
That is scary, and thank you for sharing again. It's pretty impressive, to be honest. It's yeah, something to think about, especially when you don't see it. Like you saw something, bringing all together your background that most of the people are missing, right? Like, what are we not seeing that when you dig deeper, given your experience and your studies and everything and all the statistic, when you read the number, when you say those number, it's quite touchy. Like 1 out of 3, it's wow. Okay. All right. Then the Innocent Soul Project. Tell me more
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. So that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I can see the numbers. I have been researching enough to understand that there are a lot of problems and gaps and holes as soon as you start like looking into it, and the amount of technology that is involved, the issues with privacy, the data, um, the data collection issues that most people do not understand. And so I began thinking, okay, what can I do? Like, which organization I can, help? And there were so many options, but I thought there was a gap in terms of um, us in cybersecurity having a place in the table. You know, most of the time I've been challenged by many people saying, "Oh, this is an e-safety issue, or this is a child protection issue." And when you read these cases, you can try to point fingers to many people
Yeah.
and think they're responsible.
Yeah.
But for once, I thought I'm gonna point a finger at myself. I'm responsible. I can see the problem. Where can I go from here? So it started as a project. It began just as advocacy, raising awareness, writing articles, reading more, and got connected with a few people here and there. And for some reason, I guess so many people was compelled to talk to me. Um, and I worked in a project called Grooming Recognition with other survivors and a lawyer that by far I think he's the best lawyer in Australia, and in terms of child protection, his name is Andrew Carpenter. And so we built an awareness program. From there, I began having conversation with people that works in financial crime, um, human trafficking, child trafficking in the United States and the UK. And I started to reach out to childcare centers, um, advocacy, just advocacy, trying to spread the word, trying to say, hey, I think you need to have a look to this problem differently.
Yeah.
Because it seems not it seems to be increasing. So then that's when the Innocent Souls project was born. I started to use open source intelligence as well, which is part of the open source. The Innocent Souls project is still a project, open source intelligence, because I think there is a problem as well with the working with children check,
Mm-hmm.
and that hasn't been resolved. And I'm challenging that it could be in some way, shape, or form. Um, and while I was having all of those conversations, I met Mariam as well, and Mariam and I became very concerned about the things that we were finding.
Yeah.
So it's been over a year and a half of us collecting information, having conversations with the right people, finding the gaps
Mm.
where what is that we really need to do, and how we can materialize ideas that will actually have an impact and will not just be conversations anymore. And that very quickly moved into we need to do something bigger, right?
Yeah.
And the Innocent Souls Foundation was started this year in April.
Yeah. Well, congratulations for that, and I'm sure it's just the beginning. So much to do, and I'm sure there will be a lot to see. So very, very keen to develop, to see it develop. You talk a lot about like the triangle of protection as well, talking
Yeah.
about proper like security, right? Like there's the cyber component, there is the e-safety component, the data, and then there is physical security as well. And like most of the people are not really educated. That's why like cyber awareness is so important. Give us an explanation a little bit more about that triangle of protection, what that does mean.
Yeah, look, I obviously know that they work as a silos and it's perfectly fine. But what we have seen in the last 2 years is that there are components of each element that basically affect the safety of a child. So, in terms of the side of cybersecurity, we know that there is a lot of data that is being collected, and children are being targeted. There is, not only the element of grooming, but besides that, there are other elements that we need to consider. Then we have issues in terms of how people are collecting information. Small businesses do not understand that. Obviously, they're collecting information that they shouldn't, or that parents should be aware they have. Let me just put an example. I had a call from a parent who was concerned. Their child had a dance class in a graduation, and the company was taking photos of all the children, and the parents were aware that they will receive these photos. But when they received the photos, they received the photos of the entire group. So all parents had access to all photos. And so what we see is that there is this misconception that, that does not matter and that that's not information. It is, right? So that's one of the parts of cybersecurity that I can pinpoint it straight away, is specifically as well with daycares. They collect information every single day too, especially photos. Without going too far, 2 weeks ago, we had the case of the childcare worker who had over 150 photos in his phone of all children. And so, again, it's just the practice of understanding what data is, understanding as well the repercussions of not having very important protocols in place. For instance, access control, who access to this information, right? Now, so moving from that, those two things, then we see the element of e-safety. A lot of companies as well share a lot of information online. I'll give you another case because I think is the best way to explain this. But in Perth, we had a case where a man was collecting information from social media accounts belonging to childcare centers and schools. His plan was to abduct a child. So he had everything prepared. And he was actually captured by or retained by the AFP because he was buying sex dolls that resembled children. So that was the reason why they got him. But when they got him, they discovered that he was actually, like looking for that information in online platforms like, social media, right?
That is crazy.
So then you start to connect the dots, right? Like that, why is information important? What is safety is important, the right behavior. And lastly, the physical safety. And that comes I mean, the three of them are just playing around, but the physical safety is the one that is affected based on the other two. And as well, there are physical measures that I believe that childcare centers or any place that is in contact with children should have, including in terms of data. Who can access to rooms, where is the information collected. And I believe that there is a gap in understanding how those three components really work, but they do. And the repercussions are that if one of them is out of whack, it's not really well in place.
Yeah.
The other two are affected.
Crazy. And I read a stat about like what you touched about, like photos when like groomer are looking for information, etc. I read the stat on I think it was e-safety, and by the age of 5, a child could have up to 1,000 photo online of themselves. That is absolutely crazy. And you see it on social media, even on LinkedIn these days. And blow my mind, but that's another story. That's what don't we know? Like talk to me, as I don't know anything about cyber safety, etc. So let's say I'm a parent. First day of school, I'm super excited. I take a photo of my kid and I post it online on Facebook, Instagram, and why not? I post it on LinkedIn to get some traction on there as well, just to get some likes. What I can unknowingly give away, just being happy to post that I'm happy for my kid the first day of school.
I think it's funny to say that. Obviously, people might not understand what metadata is, but yeah, we're sharing location. We're sharing more than the photo, right? Like if somebody really wants to target us, we're sharing more information that we actually understand. And I think parents do not understand that. The other thing I think parents are not aware, or perhaps I believe that the numbers are quite too high to sometimes believe that is true. But the AI generated child sexual abuse material is in the billions, right? So worldwide. So you tell someone that, it's just hard to fathom, hard to understand it. Um, Sometimes I once was asked, you know, hackers wouldn't have to hack a childcare center to get photos anymore because they can get it from social media. I completely agree. But I'm going to go back to the subject that I was mentioning to you. We don't think like a criminal. So we don't think that that would happen either. I said to parents, yes, that's true too. I think parents need to be more aware of that they should stop oversharing online. Not sharing seems to be oversharing. But I challenge as well the perspective that a hacker wouldn't be interested on hacking a place that it has photos. For instance, 2025 August, a childcare center in the UK is hacked. Over 8,000 photos are leaked. Now, the problem that we have, I guess, is that when we see as well a data leak, we don't put a price to it. We don't know what's the value of it. Parents as well don't know the value of a photo nowadays.
Yeah.
What is the value of a photo if you were to sell it online and you know someone that is sick in their mind wants to use those photos to create child sexual abuse material? You and I wouldn't think that is something that someone would do, but they do, and I think that's a a gap in a misconception parents have that it wouldn't happen to them too.
It's crazy because, like, again, seems harmless, but it's not. It's really not. Like, and also like uniform. They can recognize the school. They can recognize the
100%.
routine. They can recognize all the metadata behind it, the location, when they're there, when they're not, etc., etc. And also they put other kids on because like you take a photo and there is a group of it. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it. And the education piece is like critical.
100%. I think parents have that responsibility, and they need to be aware, and education is part of it. The second thing is, if institutions that they take photos for whatever reason they want to promote their logos of those
Yeah.
schools, and they start taking photos of children, they need to be aware of this too, because we might think that somebody won't do it, but I just gave you a case of someone actually gathering information online, targeting children. So it does happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let's move on the grooming profile.
Yep.
Because sometimes, like, I think, as a complete ignorant, I think about like someone who's grooming children and it's like, hoodie on, red eyes, like pointy teeth, a monster. Yeah, monster. But most of the time is the one we don't expect, right?
100%.
So what does grooming actually look like before he's recognized as grooming? That's like, I think is a critical point to like help people recognize that.
Yeah, so if I can divide grooming into two divisions, it happens in the physical world, so in the real world, and it happens online, right? Online, it looks very similar to a scam, but
Mm.
is a bit more dangerous in terms of social engineering because the child is given something in return that can look like a gift, that can look like a some credit in a game. They can even send stuff to their home. That's where the piece of um, the piece of financial crime is involved. But that's the part that is very dangerous. So it looks very similar to a scam, right? They gain trust. They make them feel comfortable. They make sure that they have share information with them so that they feel that they can share information back. But there is an element of rewarding the child, which is very different to a scammer, because scammer is trying to get as much, funds as they can.
Yeah.
In this case, it's very, very, very different in that at that point. And from there, it's really hard to come back, because at that point, maybe children have shared photos of them, videos of them, and it is hard. If for an adult it's hard to cognitively sometimes recognize a scammer, imagine for a child trying to recognize a groomer. Um, yeah. Now, in the physical world, it can look like anybody. There
Yeah.
is no, and I have read so many paperwork around this. There is no one thing you can spot in someone. Of
Yeah.
course, you will see someone trying to be the nicest person that take care of those children. That is a red flag. And but that can be anyone. Okay, so you have to see it, with skepticism. Each person you put your child in care. It is something that I've learned, and it's a really hard lesson.
Yeah, it's tough one. Tough one. Is any tips? Because I believe all the big problems are solved through education, right? But of course, you can't educate everybody, and children, of course, are through the educating journey, through the educative journey themselves. So it's very, very hard. What can we do as adults and as parents and everything to help out?
Look, as a parent, I would say be the best parent you can. I watched the interview a predator had in with a TV news in the US. And he said this very clearly. He said, when I target children, I target those that a parent is missing,
Mm.
right? Or it seems to be vulnerable. So I think being present is very important. And sometimes it's really hard because so many of us are working, all day. But I think that's one thing. And having, those very open conversations about how that this can look like both online and offline at very early stages. And I think this is a very important one. And I know it's a bit of a tricky one, but if something has happened to us, well, to a child, in order for a case to move forward, the child needs to be able to explain in proper words what happened.
Mm.
So that means that at a very earliest age, parents need to start telling them what's the name of the body parts, what is okay and what is not, right? Because there are so many cases that did not move forward in the justice system because of it, because not having those conversations. As I said to you, look, when I started this project, I was advocating, and I think I've been lucky enough to have as many conversations with many people in different industries, but the ones that have kept me awake at night trying to find solutions have been the ones that I had with parents. I received a call from two desperate moms who their children had been abused, and unfortunately, the children were under 3, nonverbal, so they couldn't explain what happened to them. The case didn't move forward. That person is out there. The person who committed the crime is, among us. So
Yeah.
I would say that.
And the repercussions are pretty crazy, unfortunately, like for all life. Children data. Let's talk about like the e-safety component. That's what cybersecurity can do quite a lot in technology. Of course, technology is a funny way because at the same time it's allowing to overshare, and it's
Yes.
allowing to on the dark side is allowing to do things faster than we're building them, but
Yeah.
also like have a very big opportunity to help out in reduce this number and like bring education on top of everything, right? who owns that risk of oversharing? Let's talk about like facilities, I said like childcare, companies, anything, sports, education center, all this kind of thing. Who owns the risk of like oversharing like child data? Because when we're talking about like child's data, we're not really talking about like only a data breach here. Like there's so much sensitivity behind that. Like who really owns that risk?
When you say who owns that risk, you're implying as well who is responsible, right?
Yeah.
So I think that has become a problem because not many are claiming responsibility. So then the risk is there without anyone coming forward. That is why, and just to answer your question, that is why I'm looking forward to the changes to the Privacy Act in December. Because what happens with businesses and in this case our apps, right? Apps are as well oversharing information. They are software development kits and data is collected and shared. And I think they claims responsibility. But on saying that, in terms of businesses, right? It's a bit hard because a lot of the businesses that collect children's information are small businesses, Luca. So they are not businesses that are their turnover is $3 million, which means that privacy is an option,
Yeah.
and that is a problem. And when we talk about privacy, we think about systems in cybersecurity, right? But what I challenge a little bit, I know I'm trying to extend the Privacy Act into a different component is anyone that is anyone that is collecting children information, whether they are a big business or not, they still need to comply and be the responsible people for that. And then the question of risk comes after, right? Who is taking who is the one at risk? When nobody is responsible, there is no risk because the risk is gone. And I think that is the problem.
Very true, very true. And I'm looking forward to the Privacy Act as well, because if you look at cybersecurity, the market and everything, identity and privacy are the key element out there. That honestly, with technology evolving that fast, it's hard. It's very hard. But on the flip side, though, what can technology do to make children safer? And AI as well, like put technology and AI together because like everything is evolving that fast.
Look, I obviously I love technology. So when people ask me, "Oh, technology is bad," my answer is no. I think technology can always be used for good. I think it's not about technology being good or bad. I think technology is the question is whether it's serving our people, right? And one of the things that as I said to you at the very beginning with the Initial Sales project, I think open source intelligence is a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think AI will facilitate us to recognize certain patterns, and therefore we can then stop certain bad actors. I'm not saying all of them, but I believe that there is more that can be done through technology. With the same issue, like with the working with children check, the issue right now is a technological issue. They working with children check. I don't know if you're aware, but their systems do not communicate interstate, which means that, and to be honest, I don't know how this happened, but it means that if there is a child predator who has been convicted in Victoria and moves to New South Wales and wants to do the same thing, we wouldn't be able to detect that.
Well, I mean, that's ABC, should be ABC.
Exactly right. So for me, when I noticed that issue, I thought, who never thought about it? It's been in there. It's going to take 3 years. So going back, I think those are a couple of things. AI, 100%. I think AI can help us facilitate or speed certain workflows and understand things. And I guess that is coming from what I've been trying to work on open source intelligence, because as I said to you, there is no physical characteristics or behavior that you can spot in a person straight away. But grooming is different.
Mm.
Grooming is a pattern. and it doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
And technology can help us detect that. And in fact, I think obviously, we're not trying to invent Coca-Cola again, right? So I think companies like Meta, they already know this. They already apply this. They're already quote unquote restricting, accounts that have been misused to groom children. But if we could externalize that and be able to detect, I think physically we can protect children.
Wow, that's awesome. I go back a little bit about like a child identity. That's a big topic as well. And going back to the photos, up to 5 years, 5 years old, you can have like 1,000 photos online. Who owns and who is responsible for a child identity? The child himself, or the parents? Like how you do
And
articulate that?
that's really good because that is coming into question right now with the Privacy Act. Parents are going to be signing for children, right? But some of the children will have to be informed as well. Okay. A child will never be. I don't think a child can consent fully.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be wise to say that the child actually should take responsibility. But unfortunately, is the child is the one that is going to be affected. So that goes back to parents, right? Parents need to take responsibility for all of this. Be informed as well, because consent doesn't mean being informed. They need to be informed, right? You can consent to something and they don't really know exactly what is going on. As I said to you, the example of this mom that gave me a call, she did consent to receive the photos of her daughter dancing, but she was not informed that she would receive the photos of all the children, nor that other parents would.
Again, education is key. We're going back
100%.
always to that advocacy education. And now, of course, social media ban has been a pretty big topic for the time being. Is it done well? Is it done not well? Is good enough? Is not good enough? It works? It doesn't work? All these questions. Of course, need to be bipartisan, but we can do something. We definitely can do something. Where does protection in technology become too much, and surveillance, and like children feel unsafe or like need to find a way to get around it, because that's what we do as human, right?
Yeah. And adults too, just to say,
Oh
right?
yeah, big time.
I I love that question because I think the safety commissioner has stand up to do something that I believe that children should not be in social media. That's undeniable. Having said that, though, um, I did have some concerns about it, specifically because we're giving more information away. So I did challenge a little bit that perhaps it could be done differently. So I went ahead and spoke with I'm not going to say names because I should not, but I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the CEO of the company that is behind H Assurance. Is the biggest one. So I'm not going to say which companies they look after, but I had a conversation with them because my concern was, okay, we're giving quite a bit of information. It's not facial recognition, it's age assurance, but it's data that they're collecting. And I still have many concerns about that, right? I think children do very well with technology and they're going to find ways around 100%. One of the issues that age assurance had, and I think it's probably working a bit better now, but it had a bias. Actually, if you would put a doll that was the face of a black woman or a skin of color woman, it wouldn't detect the age. So it will bypass, and children were doing that. Right. But again, I believe that there are ways that this could be done or improved, I guess. There are concerns about obviously the amount of the information that the rest of us have to provide.
Yeah, very good point on the, third party. We give access to a lot of data at this point. So we need to be very careful. And, we're talking, hopefully we touch like very big group of people here. There are parents, um, business owner, or like technology leaders, especially in the lounge here. And what can technology leader, for example, do to improve their ecosystem in this case around data, child safety, etc., etc.
I think we need to change the perspective of a data breach right now in general,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of them already involve children's information. But we never thought about it very deeply that it will come to, I mean, especially a moment where we're, as you said, oversharing information. We don't know how the future will look like in terms of curating that information and weaponizing it against us, nor against our future generations. So I think if there are any leaders in this meeting, I'll say it's a very cool, it's a call of attention to say, okay, we actually need to look at it differently because we might be providing, and we know this, we are providing too much information. So we need to minimize that. And that's why I'm so excited for the changes to the Privacy Act, because I think that there are details that shouldn't be shared with anyone. You know, how the children behave and how they are performing, what do they like, things like that. So that's one thing. And if there is any, or if any person in this meeting has any ideas, anything that they think, okay, well, actually, I think this could be part of a solution, share it with us. Because the Innocent Souls Foundation, even though it's a foundation and they started with me, it's not about me or the group of people that we have. It's about making this a community effort, making cybersecurity a bit more part of the child protection programs and finding the solutions. I think we have the smartest and a lot of people that understand really well technology, policies, protocols. We need more of that to find a solution. It's a collective effort. It's not a person or an institution.
I love that, and thanks for that. Conscious of the time, and I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot of question here. Let's do a quick couple of questions on what can we do tomorrow better today. Let's say today, because we need to act fast. So for parents, what should they stop or start doing?
Stop sharing photos immediately. That's it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Quick, simple action straight away. I'm a big advocate on that. Seen way too many, and even on LinkedIn. I work a lot on LinkedIn. Please don't. Just
Mhm.
don't. That's crazy.
Mhm.
For a tech leader, CIO, CISOs, executive, etc., what should I change?
Get involved in child protection conversations too. It's not just about systems. It's about people, and I think we need to have a different perspective as well as I said to you of a data breach in general, not only the ones that we have mentioned, but in general. There's a lot of information of children that has been shared by big companies too. So I think it's important to mention this.
Yeah, and if we happen to talk with organization responsible for children, and we talk about which ones, what question should I ask tomorrow morning?
Oh, is that again tomorrow morning?
What question should I ask tomorrow morning from tomorrow?
How do we can extend the Privacy Act to small businesses that have contact with children and that collect and retain information? How we can make those institutions responsible through a Privacy Act? Because as I said to you, that's why I defined the two things, which is child sexual abuse material is a criminal offense. It's not a privacy. As of now, it's not a privacy issue. But one of the things I didn't mention, this is very important, because I mentioned to you at the very beginning the re-victimization process. Now, think about the many photos or videos that all of these predators have been collecting, sharing, selling online that will remain there, and that those children will have to go through that re-victimization process. Those are the questions that you need to ask, because I mean, as a mom, And I hope obviously we care for children in ways that we have to these days. You don't want your child to go through that. But if you was your child, right, what would you be asking afterwards? How this happened? Why this information is still out there? Is my child going to be told in 20, 30 years that it was shared thousands upon thousands, if not millions of times? Is that information valuable? I think we need to extend and probably think differently about different things to make sure that change can come.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy when you put it in a personal way, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I think I've shared my story. Yeah.
I think like people start to go. One last question. Of course, thank you again. You turned like something very, very deeply personal into something valuable and like full of purpose for everybody. If we look at tomorrow, when the foundation succeed, what does that look like?
It looks like one, I think, is creating a path for technology to create more solutions, whether it is, with information. The second thing I think is, you said, education is a key point. You will never over educate anyone. And we want to just go into those places where they would never have a conversation about privacy or data at all. I think that's important for us. And lastly, but not least, we would love to be able to offer as many counseling sessions to those parents and children that have been victims of any online harm and abuse.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Adriana, thank you again. For everybody, the recording will be on YouTube. We're going to share it on LinkedIn and everything. You will see a couple of shorts and everything. Will be on our YouTube channel on North Star Partners. Will be also for members of the lounge in the event series. And thank you again, Adriana. It's been very much a pleasure. Thanks for sharing. And looking forward for that coffee face to face.
100%. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye,
Thank you, everybody.
everyone.